reciting the prayer. Then we'll go from there.
Ushaji went to hiking for South America.
No.
It looks
Not South America anywhere.
Oh.
Here, New Jersey only.
Okay,
Oh.
fine.
No. She said some Peru or some other country. She said she will go. Oh.
Anyway, let her enjoy her time. I think today this is not a weather to go hiking. I think better to go to Peru at this time if she's gone there. The weather is a lot better there. Anyway, Vasudevendra Yogindram
Vasudevendra Yogindram
Natva Jnana Pradam Gurum
Natva Jnanapadam Gurum
Mumukshunam Hitarthaya
Mumukshunam Hitarthaya
Tattva Bodho Abhidhiyate.
Tattva Bodho Abhidhiyate.
So we had finished chapter 10 last time. So let's just read through chapter 10 and then I'll see if people have any questions before we move forward. So we'll start with 10.1. Who is the individual soul? Stula Sharira Abhimani.
Stula
Sarira
Sarira
Abhimani.
Jiva Namakam.
Jiva
Brahma Prathibimbam Bhavati.
Brahma Pratibambam
Bhavati.
Sa eva Jiva Prakritya.
Sa eva Jiva Prakritya.
Tasmat Ishvaram Bhinnatvena Janati.
Tasmat
Ishvaram Bhinnatvena Janati.
Avidya Upadhi San.
Avidya Upadhi San.
Atma Jiva iti uchyate.
Atma Jiva iti uchyate.
Maya Upadhi San.
Maya
Upadhi San.
Ishvara iti uchyate.
Ishvar iti uchyate.
Evam Upadhi Vedat.
Evam Upadhi Vedat.
Jiva Ishvara Veda Drishtihi.
Jiveshvara Veda
Drishtihi.
Yavat Paryatnam Tishtati.
Yavat Paryantanam. Prayantanam.
Tavat Paryantam Janma Marana.
Tavat Paryantam
Janma
Marana.
Adi Rupa Samsara na Nivartate.
Adi Rupa Samsara na Nivartate.
Tasmat Karanat Jiva Ishvara Veda Buddhihi na Swakarniyam. Swakirniyam.
Tasmat
Karanam
Jiveshvara Veda na Vikarya.
So, just to give you a quick summary, I think we have gone through Jiva Vichara, we've gone through the Vichara of Sadhana Chatushtaya, we've gone through Vichara of Ishvara and the Srishti, the creation and the creator. And chapter 10 and 11, we are going to talk about why we discuss why, even though we are the same, why do we sense the difference? We are not able to identify the real nature of ours. And I think the chapter 10 says this very clearly. As long as you consider yourself to be the Jiva, which is a combination of Atma and Anatma, or Atma and the three Shariras, you are different from the Ishvara, which is Brahman and the Maya Upadhi put together. And then we looked at how we distinguished those Jiva and Atma in two different concepts. One, we looked at the Upadhi Veda, that is the quality of one is superimposed on the other. So here it is a mutual superimposition. The quality of the Atma is superimposed on the body. The quality of the body is superimposed on the Atma. And similarly, the Ishvara is a combination of Maya and the Brahman. So on the Ishvara side, when you look at it, it has the qualities of the Maya, which is what it gives you, the isness, the Sat, the existence component of it. And then the Ishvara gets the Chaitanya Rupam from the Brahman. So it's the same concept. And then it says that if you remove the Upadhis, you remove the Maya and the Avidya or the Shariras, then Atma and Brahman are the same. So the real takeaway from this is that to go to the Jiva Ishvara Aikyam, the first step is to really understand who we are. So that is what we say Viveka. That is, you need to be able to do the differentiation between what is real and what is not real, right? The first step is to say that I am not the Jiva, because the Jiva is a combination of Anatma and Atma. And that is where most of us spend our lifetime. We are still not convinced that we are not the Anatma, we are just the Atma. Once you get the conviction in the Atma, then you can make the leap that Atma and the Brahman, which is the primordial energy that is powering this entire universe, is the same. But if you are not able to break the conditioning or the identification with your body, mind, intellect concept, you cannot make the leap to this thing about Aikyam. As long as you think you are the body, mind, intellect concept, the Jagat is real, the Ishvara is real. So that is why this whole journey is very difficult, because we have to go from Daivatam, which is how all of us are taught from our life. That is, you are different than the Ishvara. There is somebody looking after you. There is Papam and Punyam. And that person who is looking after you is in a temple. You need to go pray to him. So you're constantly given this distinction that the Ishvara is all powerful. He's different than you are. And that is the leap that we have to cross. That is the bridge that we have to cross. That is, from that difference, we have to get to the point of saying that we are similar. And this is exactly the true purpose of all the scriptures in our culture, in our religion. If you look at any book, the Lakshartyam of that book is to basically teach you what your real nature is. Because we are born, and the universe that we live in constantly superimposes the false view of the Jiva as who we really are. And the scriptures say that is not true. You are not the Jiva. You are the Atma that powers the Jiva. And that knowledge you gain through the scriptures and through the guidance of a guru. The guru with a good padantaram can kind of walk you through those steps, because this is such a big leap to cross. There's a huge bridge that you cross, because everything that we see in our experience is constantly telling us that we are different than that person. This is real. The Ishvara is not me. The Ishvara is a karma phaladata. I am the creator. The Ishvara is the creator. And that crossing that bridge is what we have to do through Shraddha and Bhakti. And the Bhakti and the karma is to get the mind ready for this knowledge. And the knowledge is what is going to break the shackles and finally help you identify and cross the bridge. So in chapter 10, this book really talks about why we think the Jiva and the Ishvara is different. And in the chapter 11, it'll kind of highlight that is more because of lack of knowledge or wrong identification or the wrong knowledge that we see the differentiation. But in reality, they're not different. If you kind of take it down to the fundamentals of the two entities, the Atma and the Brahman are the same. So let me stop there and see if people had any questions, comments, anything that didn't make any sense before we go to the next chapter.
So Harijit, just to rephrase, we need to prepare ourselves first to receive the knowledge, but once we get the knowledge is what will help to de-identify ourselves from the body, mind, intellect. Is that the right order? Because we see that maybe not us, or maybe not me or anybody specific, but in spiritual path, once everybody definitely starts to prepare the mind, clean up the mind by doing all type of karmas, yoga and everything, like karma yoga and everything, and then they receive the knowledge. So if they are really prepared enough and get the knowledge, would this would this thing, the identification goes away automatically, or they have to do something while acquiring the knowledge as well?
You don't have to do anything. I think Ramana Maharshi used to say, Chumma iru, that be yourself. Just identify who you are and try to understand who you are. The steps that normally is prescribed is that, first of all, obviously you need to have the sadhana chatushtayam, right? We talked about the fourfold qualities that are required, the viveka with vairagya, the shamadama, the 6 qualities, and the mumukshutvam. The reason that is required is that you have to do a lot of vichara. You have to train the mind. See, acquiring those 6 qualities is nothing but another way of training your mind. You need to have the sama, dhamma, uparati, and all the qualities that we discussed in a lot of detail. And then you have to do shravanam, which is essentially what we are doing right now. That is, you have to read the textbook, and you need to be able to understand what the scriptures are actually saying. It is just not reading alone, but it's being able to identify the key concept of what is being told to you, right? Some of the key concepts that you're learning, the understanding of the concepts that are presented to you through a guru, because these things cannot be done over the web. You can't read somebody's commentary and say, I understand what is happening, because as you go through this thing, you will have a lot of doubts. And that's why you need a guru who's been taught in the Padantara, in the traditional way of doing it, because the context matters a lot. The same word will be completely different in the end of the textbook than in the first part of the book. And you can come back and say, oh, you said this here, you said that here, and you cannot make a head and tail of what is happening. So you need to have a guru explaining to you the whole process. And that process of this knowledge, you get the bookish knowledge, you get the concepts, but the real thing, in my opinion, is mananam, is the question of reflection. It's the question of constantly thinking of this issue, what this thing is saying, and then say, why is it that I am not able to understand that? What I see in the experience, what I feel in my relationship with people is so different than what the scriptures are saying. And then through a guru or through satsangs, through a lot of reading, little by little, get the doubts cleared. So it's like polishing a diamond, right? It is the diamond or the mind or whatever you want to call it. It is dirty up front, but this reflection is actually helping you clean the mind. And then we do what is called Nidhidhyasanam, which is a combination of meditation. But for you to get to Nidhidhyasanam, you first need to gain the conviction in the knowledge. Without the conviction in the knowledge that what the scriptures are saying is true, you cannot really even do any meditation. There's no point doing meditation because you don't believe the scriptures. Now, the question of doing some work to get this knowledge doesn't make any sense, because this is not external to you. This is something that people don't understand. They think I need to cross the mind, I need to do this, you don't need to do anything. You just need to remove the ignorance that you have, and this knowledge will shine upon yourself. Because if you really understand what the scriptures are saying, this is who you are. You are the Chaitanya Swarupam. You're not the body, mind, intellect. If you objectify this knowledge, then this entity becomes external to who you are. And if you think that you've understood that, then you're not understood anything. There's actually another Upanishad that goes through that in a lot of detail. This is not something for you to do outside. This is something that over time, the knowledge will clear the ignorance. And as the dust is removed, as the ignorance is removed, the Atma will reveal itself, because that's who you really are. I hope I'm making myself clear, but it won't make any sense right now. But I think as you move forward, you will realize this is not like you have to do any karma. Karma cannot get you knowledge. The action can just get you a result which kind of goes away in time. This is a real thing that exists throughout the test of time. So it is only knowledge that can get you there. The issues that we do are essentially preparing the mind to get the knowledge. That's where the karma comes in, whether you do karma yoga or you do nishkamya karma, that we will talk about when we get into the karma aspect after 2 chapters. But there is no, like, you can't really do action to get this knowledge. This knowledge reveals itself. I hope I might make myself clear, but
So,
if it's not, let me know.
Yeah, I think definitely karma doesn't directly, like, we don't need to do anything that, again, we understand intellectually. But again, to live is something we'll have to do. The first of all, cleanup is definitely very much important, is what I understand, is because jnanam, intellectually understanding the scriptures and even these concepts would not still help, is what I could infer. Because I mean, if we are really ready, then I think the grasping of this knowledge will be at a different level than what at least I am able to, like,
yeah, it takes time. It
grasp
doesn't take, it's not,
yeah.
You don't get it right away. It takes time. See, the thing is that this is what I said. The fundamental thing, before we even dream of getting this knowledge and we become Brahman or understanding Brahman, is to break the stranglehold that the body, mind, intellect has on us. That is the fundamental goal that you can try, where you stop identifying with the body, mind, intellect, and you slowly but surely every single day do some activity where you get this idea that your divinity enclosed by this body, mind, intellect concept, not the other way around. That is your body, mind, intellect concept that has an Atma, which is why Swamiji used to say, in fact, he tells us, all of us, we are all busy. I'm not saying everybody is busy, nobody has the time. But in your day-to-day life, you can find 15 or 20 minutes or half an hour every day to do something that breaks that shackles. Read a book of Gita, say some mantras, read, listen to some Swamiji's lecture. They're given the technology that we have. Put it in your iPhone and listen to it when you're in the train. I do that all the time because I have an hour to go and an hour to come. And if any one of you see me in the train, I won't even identify you because that 1 hour is mine. I really enjoy listening to scriptures and really getting into it. The reason I say that stranglehold of your body, mind, intellect has to be broken from within. If there is any activity, because every activity that we do today in the transactional world, it just reinforces that I'm body, mind, intellect. We have this ego, and the ego is a combination of identification of the jiva. The activities that we can do every day, that's why we, in our culture, you say, you get up in the morning, you do puja. That puja for half an hour or 20 minutes that you do is actually an activity where you are breaking the shackles of the body, mind, intellect. I'm sure there are a lot of Telugu speaking people here. One of the reasons you go to Tirupati and give your hair away is to say that this body, mind, intellect, I'm actually giving up the idea of I'm the body, mind, intellect, because the body, mind, intellect does not belong to me. We don't even, nobody kind of explains the spiritual significance of what you're doing in Tirupati. The reason you're doing it is you're actually giving up the ego, giving up the thought that I'm body, mind, intellect, and laying it out in front of God. The reason we do a lot of vridam in our culture, right? Our grandparents will do it, is to break the stranglehold of the stomach, right? To break the stranglehold of the craving for food. You can have the conviction, and you can gain the conviction that I control the body, mind, intellect, not the other way around. So little by little, if you can slowly wean yourself away from that. The other thing that Swamiji told me a long time ago, and this probably, it's a very simple concept once you understand it, but it might not make sense. But let me just explain to you. See, as a human being, we cannot sit still. We always have to act. Right? Even sitting in a couch is actually an action that you're doing, right? What Swamiji said is that every action that you do, you actually do it with two main concepts in mind. You do the activity that has been given to you to the best of your ability, whatever be the activity, whether it's raising your children, writing a program at work, or managing a team, or managing a project, making a presentation. Do the best you can. That is, if you finish that activity, you should have no regrets. This is the best I could have done. That's all you do. The reason you do that, or a way for you to get your mind in that condition, is to say that I am doing this for God, Ishvara Arpanam. And I'll give you an example for the ladies in the room. When you make a prasadam for a temple or something, we all do something for the temple or for a bhiksha for a Swamiji. The mental attitude that you have when you cook that food is very different than the attitude that you have when you cook your normal food. When you are doing this for a temple, you probably get up in the morning, you take a shower, you make sure that you are saying a prayer or something else because you're doing it for God. That doing it for God elevates the purpose of the activity that you're doing, and you give your best at that particular point of time. The second thing that you have to do, once you've done this activity to the best of your ability, which is what Ishvara Arpanam is, you have to have prasada buddhi, right? When you go to the temple and you're going to the temple and praying to the Lord, the priest comes and gives you some prasadam, right? And you're going with let's say you're going with your friends. You don't go and tell, oh, you got cashew, I got badam, or I wanted this kalkanda, but you got badam. You don't fight. It is something that you got, you just take it and go away, right? This is what I said right at the beginning in one of the classes, that you don't have the right to the result. The result is given by Ishvara, is given by God. So if you go with that attitude, that every activity that you've done is to the best of your ability, and you're not dependent on the result. Whatever the result is, I'll accept it. A lot of your problems will be solved. I think the fundamental problem that we have is that we don't accept the result. Right? Before we embark on an activity, we want to have a particular result. When we train our kids to go to Westminster High School or a private school, we want the kid to be in Ivy League school. If the kid is not in Ivy League school, then we are failures, right? The result is already behind all the activities that we do. That is not the way to do it. Just do the result, the activity to the best of your ability. Do the best thing for the kid. Give him the tuition, give him all the tools that are there. And if it happens, it happens. It doesn't happen, it doesn't happen, right? If you go with that attitude, what happens is, little by little, if things go your way, you don't feel proud. If things go the wrong way, you don't feel depressed enough to take your life. See, the problem is we always think of depression. We also don't think of, when things go right, how we boost our ego with pride, right? If suddenly, let's say, this has happened to me, I've seen a lot of people. You have 2 or 3 people, all of us came from India. Anyway, I didn't come in an IT world, but I know people who came in an IT group. They were all programmers to begin with. And then one of the guys does very well, and then he becomes a manager and he gets up a little higher. Slowly he starts not identifying with these people. Now, he will not move in that circle. He will have his own new circle that he'll move with, because he's now become a manager. These guys are still a programmer. They're all playing a role. It is like you just got a promotion and you kind of moved on. You were at the right place at the right time. See, the issue about pride is never really emphasized. When things go our way, we think we did it. You didn't do it. God chose you for that particular role, and just be happy that God chose you. Similarly, if you don't give the promotion, that doesn't mean you're bad. Maybe God had some other vision for you. He had a different role for you to play, and you can go with that attitude. See, that attitude is very important. And if you don't have that prasada buddhi, we get totally sucked in our ego, both on the positive side and the negative side. And this, over time, cultivates the concept of that I am the witness. I am the sakshi. I am not the karta or bhokta. I am the witness to an action that is being performed. And that kind of leads to what Shakespeare used to say, right? All the world is a stage. I'm just an actor, and the director has already written the role that I'm playing. If you go with that attitude over time, whatever happens to you in your activity, you will not get depressed, or you will not get elated or proud. And I think that if you go with that attitude, which is how you should live in the transactional world, because if you live with this world, you'll always realize with that view, that witness that I am is who I am. I am playing a role as a jiva, and that jiva has multiple roles. It is a father, it's a husband, it's a son. The same thing with ladies. I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a sister. But I am not any one of them. I'm just playing a role at that particular point of time. but I'm the entity that's actually playing the role. And I think that attitude over time will try to slowly break the body, mind, intellect concept. That is the most difficult aspect in this journey. All the other things intellectually will make sense, but to really experience that, breaking that body, mind, intellect stranglehold, that takes multiple janmas.
Also, Hari, just to add, about Gnana, I think, for example, somebody, let's say they don't know anything about Gnana. They haven't studied anything. They didn't have a chance to meet any guru and so on and so forth. So there are a lot of people who actually get to higher states of consciousness by just meditation and practices because of the. But what happens, I observed, they kind of, most of them, I wouldn't say all of them, lose purpose of their life. For example, let's say I'm able to actually see Antarjyoti in myself. I right away recognize I am that Antarjyoti. But, they cannot connect to external world and how to, there is some void that is created when Gnana is missing, probably more than the other way around.
No, I think it's very true. And I think that's why I said knowledge is the only one that can, we will discuss that a little bit more. I think the next chapter talks about Krama Mukti and Jiva Mukti. And Jivan Mukti is the one where you are able to identify and understand the knowledge of the Brahman in this particular life. Krama Mukti is something to like what you have said, and where people do upasana and they don't really know the knowledge, but they actually are very pious and they're doing a lot of puja and they're doing a lot of good things. What the Upanishad says is that you attain the higher level of consciousness, or you attain the Brahma Loka, where you are able to inhabit with more learned people. And then when the pralaya happens, you are able to attain samadhi. You're able to attain the higher goal. But to really understand the knowledge, in Kathopanishad it said, it's only the human birth where you can gain the knowledge. Even the devas cannot gain this knowledge. Devas actually come down to earth and get born as human beings to learn the knowledge. That's why a human birth is considered to be very, very precious. It's not something that needs to be wasted upon. You cannot get any other, like for example, in other lokas, whether it's Pitru Loka or other things, the knowledge is not very clear. I think there is actually a verse in Kathopanishad where Lord Yama is telling Nachiketa, who's a student, that Pitru Loka is as if learning to read with learning to write on a pail of water. It is not clear enough. It's consistently changing. To really get the clarity of knowledge and vision, the human birth is the best opportunity that you have. And don't waste that knowledge. Don't waste that birth that you've got in pursuing worldly things, but focus on attaining the spiritual goal. Any other questions? I see Ushaji has joined us. I thought you were in Peru or something, but I'm glad to see you here.
No, sir. My phone was, gone, so I couldn't get the.
She was
We told
talking about
everybody
you
you
were
went
gone.
to
You were gone on some trekking to Peru.
South America, Usha.
2 months from now.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
okay.
In May,
No, it's
in May
fine.
I'll be out. I hope I'll come back.
No, you'll do all right. You'll do all right. That'd be good.
Thank you.
But I'm glad to see you. Good to see
Thank
you
you.
anyway.
Peru also means that guava, right? Guava fruit is called Peru, I think, in Marathi.
Yeah, but this Peru, it is not
No,
included
I
in my
thought
text.
maybe Ushari said I'm going to South Jersey to get some fresh. I'm going to South Jersey for Peru. Something.
oh.
No,
I'm going to real Peru.
He's
okay,
South America.
going for hiking up there, yeah.
Hiking, trekking.
nice.
Is Machu Picchu up there? I don't know whether it's
Yeah,
there.
Machu Picchu, I'm going, 4 day,
That's where you're going. Okay.
3 day, 4 nights, or 4 day, 3 nights, Which
Yeah.
first
Wow.
time.
Just be careful about food. That's the only thing that you might have a little trouble with.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
that's
it's a
the
very
only
good
thing
place.
right.
Yeah. I've not been there.
been-
I've had some friends who've gone there. But in Latin America, there's no concept of vegetarianism, so it's a little bit of a difficult thing to go there.
yeah.
But it's a good place. The Incas were a very proud civilization.
I
Right.
used to
Learn
hike
a
a
lot
lot
from
when I was in California. I used to hike like 20 miles some days.
Wow.
Up to 3,000.
Maybe you should start hiking now so that you're ready for that trip. You've heard
That
it's a
is-
strenuous trip.
yes.
So, but anyway, but these days people don't hike. They take the helicopter and it takes you up in a particular spot. And then from there, it's a lot easier. You don't hike from the bottom. That was like 10, 15 years ago. So everything there's a shortcut.
Right.
There is a train, you take train and from
You
there
can take
you
a
take
train
the bus.
also.
Yeah, I was there 4 years ago.
Right.
Okay.
Vaishno Devi is like that. We used to trek all the way up. We used to walk up
Right.
13 kilometers. Now you can take flat road one. You can take a chopper.
And the
Same
world
thing
has
with
become a lot
Kedarnath
easier.
also, I think. Even Kedarnath has become the same way.
Oh,
People used to go up, walk, and then on the horse. Now helicopter just lands there.
Yeah, I know. I was talking to my grandmother before she passed away. In olden days, when she grew up, going to Kashi was considered to be life's goal.
Right.
These days, you can take a flight in
Yes.
the morning and come back in the night after visiting Kashi.
Yeah,
It's just like
people are
completely
going
different.
very frequently. Yeah.
Yeah, completely different.
There is a saying in Telugu, going to Kashi is going to graveyard. That's like
Right.
Kashi
right.
with Kati, something.
Got it.
Right. It's the final resting place for you from that perspective. Any other questions? If not, let's start. Ushaji is there, so we can start verse number 11. So the verse number 10, we looked at the differences between Jiva and Ishvara. In verse number 11, we'll talk about the similarities or the identity between Jiva and Ishvara. So over to you, Ushaji. Maybe you can just start reading those verses.
Jiva Ishvara Aikya, identity between Jiva and Ishvara. Verse 11.1, Jiva and Ishvara, there was differences. Nanu saham karasya
Nahu
Nanu
sahamkarasya
sahamkarasya
kinchit jnanasya jivasya.
kinchit
kinchit
jnanasya
jnanasya
jivasya
jivasya
Nirahankarasya
Ahamkarasya
sarvajnasya ishvarasya.
Sarvajnasya Ishvarasya.
11.2, what is the inquiry? Tattvamasi iti mahavakyat.
Tattvamasi mahavakyat
Mahavakyat.
Katam abheda buddhi syat.
Katham
Katham
abheda
abheda
Ubayo viruddha dharma krantvatvat.
Ubhayo viruddha
dharma karnavat
Iti chetana.
Iti
Iti chenna.
Stop here for a second before you move forward. The first verse says is that we as Jiva, or we call it Alpagya, we are very limited knowledge and we have an ego, right? And in Gita, I think in probably chapter 8 or chapter 9, Bhagavan Sri Krishna says that unlike the Jiva, I know everything about my prior janmas. I have complete visibility of what my prior janma are, and he has no ego whatsoever. He has no concept of ahankara. He has created the entire globe, and he has no ego. We have created small little things, couple of children here, a house there, a job here, and we are full of ego. Like we just think that we are the greatest group of people on earth. And I think that's an important difference between Jiva and Ishvara. And the most of the scriptures, in fact, even Gita says that is Tattvam Asi, right? That is, you are Tvam, you are that. That is, the individual Jiva is the same thing as the Brahman or the God that is out there. And I think that is the inquiry that we started this book with, and that's the inquiry in all the scriptures. That is what is called Mahavakya. That is the Aikyam between. Mahavakyam is essentially any word that actually displays the connection between the Jiva and the Ishvara, or the Atman and the Brahman, the micro and the macro. The words that display the connection or emphasize the connection is called Mahavakya. And I think when we think ourselves as the Jiva, this question always comes up: how can that be true? right? How can I be the creator? I'm just a jiva. And I think those are the two things that we go through. And the other thing I want to highlight is that when the scriptures says you are that, the you does not mean the jiva. There is something called what we call vachyartha and something called lingartha, or what we call lakshartha. Lakshartha or lingartha is something that is the inner meaning. Like, for example, when I say India is playing Australia, right? If you're a cricket fan, you know India will not be playing Australia. It'll be Indian cricket team playing the Australian cricket team, or Indian hockey team playing the Australian hockey team. So when the word is said, you don't go after the literal meaning, but you go after what the implied meaning is, right? Similarly, when the Vedas are talking about you are that, they're not talking about the jiva, the superficial jiva that you say. They're talking about the atma, that is who you are, and they're connecting that with that. That is not the Ishvara, but that is, you take the Maya concept out of it. The energy principle, the Chaitanya principle that is there is the Brahman. So this Chaitanya principle, Atma, is the same thing as the Brahman. It's not a part of the Brahman, it is the same thing. And that is what the literal meaning is. This is what the Upanishad or anything in Vedanta is trying to highlight. And that's exactly what is meant. So don't go with the literal meaning of you. You have to kind of really understand what is meant by you, and you have to understand what is meant by that. And the you and the that there are Atma and the Brahman. Only then you can equate it. That's why I said in a couple of classes ago, as long as you think that you are the jiva, you can never have the aikyam, right? The jiva can never be the aikyam. So the next two verses will talk about the lakshyartha of you, or tat, the lakshyartha of tvam, and then it will kind of combine the two. So Ushaji, you can go back from 11.3 onwards and finish it off.
Verse 11.3, the literal and implied meanings of the Stula Sukshma Sharirabhimani.
Stula Sukshma
Sharirabhimani.
Tvam Pada Vachyaratha.
Tam
Vachyaratha.
Upadhi Vinirmuktam.
Upadhi vinirmuktam.
Samadhi Dasha Sampannam.
Samadhi dasha
sampannam.
Shuddham Chaitanyam.
Shuddham
chaitanyam.
Tvam Padalakshyartha.
Tvam
Padalakshyartha.
Verse 11.4, the literal and implied meanings of that. Evam sarvajnanatva visishtadi.
Evam
Visishtadi.
Ishvaraha tat pada vachartha.
Ishvara
Tatpadavachartah.
Upadhi shunyam.
Adhishunyam.
Shuddha chaitanyam.
Suddha
Chaitanyam.
Tat pada lakshartha.
Tatpadalakshartah.
Verse 11.5, in consciousness lies the identity. Evam cha jiveshvarayo.
Evam
Jiveshwarayo.
Chaitanya rupena bhede.
Chaitanya rupena bhede.
Bhede.
Bhadaka bhavaha.
Badaka abhavaha.
So maybe Vikasji, you can read the English meaning of each of the verses, and then we'll go from there.
11.1, Jiva and Ishvara, their vast differences, but one endowed with ego and two having limited knowledge is the Jiva, while one without any ego and two having omniscience is Ishvara. What is the inquiry? In the Mahavakya, that thou art, how can there be this equality between these two contradictory things having opposite characteristics? If there is such a doubt, no, it is not so. The literal and implied meanings of thou. The gross and the subtle, one identified with these bodies, this is the literal meaning of thou. Free from all conditionings and being in the state of samadhi, the pure consciousness, this is the implied meaning of thou. The literal and implied meanings of that. So too, who is endowed with omniscience, and so on, and known as Ishvara, this is the literal meaning of that, or of tat, right?
Yeah.
Of tat. Free from all conditionings, the pure consciousness, this is the implied meaning of tat. In consciousness lies the identity. And so, between the Jiva and Ishvara, from the standpoint of consciousness, there is no contradiction in their identity.
Yeah, if you can read the following paragraph. It's just an explanation of what we have covered.
In the previous section, it was shown using two models that Jiva and Ishvara are one when they are dissociated with their respective upadhis or limiting factors. Here the same truth is explained to the student of Vedanta when he is faced with the statement in the Upanishads, Tat Tvam Asi. The student may be bewildered at first due to the opposite nature of the qualities exhibited by these two, Jiva and Ishvara. The teacher thus carefully explains from another perspective, that of logic, the same truth that we arrived at the looking of the two models.
Yeah, let's get somebody else to read from there. Maybe Anil ji, you can take it from there.
Literal and implied meanings. Due to faith in the teacher, his statement has to be taken seriously. And since the literal meanings do not make sense, the implied meanings have to be investigated. That is when the truth becomes clear to the intellect of the inquiring student. Acharya ji gave a beautiful analogy on this point. Two friends, A and B, are walking together. They see a third person, C, walking towards them. A knows C, but B doesn't. A says, the jackal is coming, be quiet. There is clearly no sign of any jackal around. B realizes that he cannot take the words of his friend literally. Since he is a trusted friend, he cannot just write off the words either. So he turns to their implied meaning. He deduces that the jackal must be the person C. Why a jackal? Because he has qualities like that of a jackal, very shrewd and cunning, perhaps. C passes by without any exchange of words. B winks at A as if saying, your jackal has passed by and we have saved ourselves any unwanted confrontations. This is what is being done in this verse. The literal meaning is dropped on the strength of the Guru's words and their implied meaning taken up. Then the whole concept comes to light. If Jiva and Ishvara are looked at from their literal meanings, they are virtually opposite each other in nature. As described in this verse, in the case of Jiva, in the case of the Jiva, the conditioning is negative. The Jiva is predominantly tamasic and a slave of Maya. Ishvara, on the other hand, has a positive conditioning, is predominantly sattvic, and is associated with omnipotence, omniscience, and omnipresence. How can the two be identical? The upadhis in both cases arise from the creation of Maya, hence they are both unreal in nature. They fall into Vyavaharik Satya category. As such, it would be valid to rule them out of the equations when comparing Jiva and Ishvara. So we turn to their implied meanings. When we do so, it is seen that from the point of view of pure consciousness, that is, seeing both of them from Paramarthic Satya level, they are both the same. The logic is undeniable. It becomes crystal clear that the two are identical when viewed independent of their upadhis. The two equations are the Jiva equals to pure consciousness plus avidya upadhi. That Ishvara, pure consciousness plus maya upadhi. If the avidya and maya upadhis are deleted from the equation because they are both unreal in essence, then the equality between Jiva and Ishvara is seen at once.
Yeah, let's stop there. There are a lot of concepts that have been thrown here. See, in our culture, we have three levels of reality. The first reality is what we call Paramarthic reality, which is the spiritual reality, right? When I say that you are the Atma, which neither dies nor is born, that is at the spiritual level, right? The second reality we have is what we call Vyavaharika reality or a transactional reality. In the transactional reality, we all have an ego, we all have a body, we all have a body, mind, intellect, we have body, mind, and emotions. And then there is a third reality, which is called Pratibhasika reality, which is not given here, which is the reality that exists in the dream, right? When you are dreaming, that whatever you're dreaming at that moment is real. You enjoy all the emotions, even though you don't have your eyes or you don't have your ears or you don't open your mouth, but you have a conversation, you see color, you see that person, you hear that person. That reality is called Pratibhasik reality. That's why when I said we cannot negate the Vyavaharik reality, because we are born in this world, we have relationships. We are not like rishis who are going into this, living in a mountain or whatever, where you can avoid the world and just focus on the Paramarthic reality. We are in the Vyavaharik world. We need to realize that this is not the reality that I'm pursuing. I'm trying to pursue the spiritual reality, which is in a spiritual level. That's why I always have told you, when you are engaged in the transactional world, you need to have an ego, because you cannot go into your office and say, oh, you are Atma, I am Atma, you do whatever you want, I don't really care. That doesn't work, right? You are there at that particular point of time to do a transaction. Same thing. A mother cannot just say, oh, the child is also a spirit, I'm also a spirit, they can eat their own food. That doesn't work. You have a Vyavaharik reality because you have an ego. So you need to do all the duties that you're supposed to do in the Vyavaharik world, but you need to constantly remember that is just a role that you're playing. Your main reality is what we call the Pratibhasik reality, which is the Atma that you are, which is the reality that stands the test of time and the test of space. So it is beyond time and space, and that is what you are, but you don't recognize it because of avidya, because of ignorance. And that's why through this knowledge, when you remove that ignorance, that Pratibhasik reality or the Atma that is within you will be surfaced, and then you will have permanent bliss. So there are lots of concepts hidden in these words. I just want to stop there and just kind of highlight what has been said. And I think we talked about Upadhi being something that conditions. So this person has taken the Upadhi Beda here. He said a Jiva is conditioned by the body, mind, intellect. The Ishvara is conditioned by the Maya, as we looked at it. If you remove the body, mind, intellect, or avidya and the Maya, which are both unreal, as we talked about, because they don't have an independent existence, they depend on the Atma for the existence. The Atma or the pure conscious is the same. That's how we arrive at that, the Aikyam in the process. So let me stop there. Or before we open up for questions, maybe we read the last 4 paragraphs. Who hasn't read anything? Maybe 3G, you can finish off the chapter. Some points to consider.
It's on page 63.
It is
68.
page 68.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, some key points to consider. Where does this process of analytical deduction take place? It is in the Antakarana, where the intellect resides. Thus, we see how effective the purified intellect can be as a means towards realization. The intellect cannot be underestimated in value as an instrument to grasp the knowledge of the self. The verse also places samadhi at the center of the realization of the self. The internal sadhana of Shravana, Manana, and Nidhidhyasanam come to fruition in samadhi. That is where the direct experience of the nature of the self occurs. We also note here that the identity we are seeking between Jiva and Ishvara is not equality or quantitative identity. It is a qualitative reality. In essence, both have the pure consciousness as their foundation, but it is nature's plan that the reflected consciousness is different as they have different functions to fulfill in the plan of creation. So we are not putting Jiva and Ishvara on a scale and weighing them against each other. The example Acharya ji gives is of a king and a beggar. Taking wealth as the basis of comparison, they are clearly not equal. But when both are stripped of their wealth status, they are both seen as human beings. This is what is done in this verse in comparing Jiva and Ishvara. They have been stripped of their upadhis and found to be identical. When the teacher has thus explained the significance of Tattvamasi, that thou art, the student understands it well, and his reply to his teacher is, yes, indeed, O master, aham brahmasmi, I am indeed Brahman.
I don't think we are at the point of saying that, but that's what a good student will say. He or she would understand that he is Brahman, and then he would reply that this is also a Mahavakyam. It is in one of the Upanishads that it comes in. Each of these Mahavakyams actually come in one of the Upanishads and each of the Vedas. So there are 4 major Mahavakyams that we all are normally asked to read and understand. So let me stop there and see if people have any questions, any comments that might require some more clarifications. Go ahead.
We say Ishvara is a combination of Brahman with Maya, right?
Yeah.
And we say Brahman is real.
Right. Brahman
Is Ishvara real?
Ishvara is real just like a Jiva is real. Right? Ishvara,
Okay.
in the Vedantic sense, it's not real. It is real as long as that pralayam is there. Right? Because as long as the Maya is there with the Brahman, it is there. But if the Brahman decides that at some point I need to take over the Maya has to come and rest in me, just like in deep sleep, right? The body, mind, intellect decides to take a break and it rests with the Atma. The Maya at some point tries to rest with Brahman, and that's what we say pralaya happens. That creation is destroyed. So when the Ishvara also has a starting point and an ending point. The Ishvara is an Ishvara only for one particular creation, whereas the Brahman is there throughout.
So Hariji, in Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan said, Mamaya Duratya. So in order for you to cross my Maya, surrender to me. So can we actually correlate that to this?
Surrender to me is you drop your ego. When you drop your ego, your body, mind, intellect, you become Atma. You're joining with me.
Hariji, for Ishvara to not exist, but if there's no Jiva, then there's no Ishvara, right? So like, for me, I'm a Jiva, right? So when I break out of that, then it's all one.
Correct, but that does not mean when you break out, the Ishvara can disappear. The Ishvara will be there as long as the Jagat is there. As long as
It's
the
for
world
other
is,
jivas, right? I mean, for me, if I am, so for me, it is not there. I mean, for
correct.
other jivas, it is there.
Correct. The creation is still there. The Jagat
Yeah,
is
the
still there.
creation is still there, and that'll stay, right? As you said, like until the pralaya comes, or
Right. And that, as long as that is there, the Ishvara will be there. The Ishvara exists in relation to the Jagat, in relation to the creation.
Because what you are saying is the Ishvara doesn't exist for you, but exists for others. That's what
Yeah,
you're
the
saying.
Ishvara is
Right.
a cumulative thing. It's like when you, in a forest, if one tree dies, the forest doesn't die. The forest is still there.
Right. So for the jiva, which is, if the jiva is, broken through, it doesn't even matter, right? I mean, I think it's an awareness that there is Ishvara, there is jiva, but then where am I? Like if it's one jiva that's broken through, right, at that point, right, that it's just awareness, right? It's,
Yeah, that's what you are. The jiva, the other components of jiva are not real, right? We know that the body, mind, intellect is not real. It actually is born out of the Panchabhutas and it goes and merges in the Panchabhutas. What is real is the Atma. The jiva is a combination of body, mind, intellect, and the Atma. When you looked at it.
Right.
So that happens all the time. Like people die, basically the Atma is left, the body, mind, intellect is then burnt or it's cremated or whatever goes on. It goes and becomes part of the 5 entities. But the world goes on, right? If so many people die every day, but you still have the world and you still have the Ishvara. It doesn't change. And most of the people, they don't attain moksha, they actually take up another body. That's the whole samsara, right? That's the concept of karma and reincarnation that we have. We have the combination of life and birth till you have vasanas. So you take up another body to exhaust the vasanas so that at some point you take what we call you have the last death. The last death is when you actually merge with the Supreme. And that actually happens with the culmination of knowledge in multiple life and birth. And there is evidence to that in Gautama Buddha's life, right? We know what he was 24 births before he attained Mukti or moksha.
so what you said, right? They merge with I forget the word, but isn't that like Brahman? Like if you...
Yeah, he merges with the divine. The divine is Brahman, or
Okay.
He becomes part of the Brahman. The Atma, he's actually already Brahman. So he just, the false notion goes away and he knows who really he is. And he is nothing but the Brahman. That's why I say, once you understand what you are as a Brahman, you become part of the Brahman.
Is it necessary to be born 24 times? Like how many times you said, sorry? Or is
It is necessary to be born as long as you need to get the knowledge. Some people get it in 24 times.
Okay.
Some people like Ramana Maharshi get it in one birth itself.
That's what that is
So
what I meant, right?
Depends on how much vasanas you have and what is the level at which you are that you can merge. And that's why we say that this is the other important point. The birth does not need to be human birth all the time. You could be born as an animal. You could be born as a tree
Insect.
or as an insect. You will not have that capability to learn this because you don't have the concept of thought and intellect in those births. Only in the human birth you have the concept of intellect. That's why we say, do not waste the human birth, because this is the only opportunity for you to really attain the spiritual goal.
In Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan says, I think so long as we are associated with Prakriti, there is Punarjanma. After that, it is not.
Prakriti is nothing but body, mind, intellect. So it's the same thing. As long as you think that you are body, mind, intellect, you have samsara and you go through that cycle.
Yeah.
There is a bhajan by Hari Om Sharan. Some words are coming and some are not coming in my head, which actually says something exactly very precisely in 2-3 lines. I'll try to remember and I'll share next time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? So we will not have a class for, I think, close to a month, more than a month now. The next class will be March 22nd, which is a Tuesday.
So
So
I'm actually thinking if everyone is okay, we can study Bhaj Govinda. Bhaj Govinda is relatively easy.
right, I won't call it easy. There's still a lot of Vedantic stuff in there. Maybe that's the next textbook we can take after
Yeah.
this, if you want.
And we can also meditate, we can meet. I'll put a message.
No, whatever. I don't have a problem. You do whatever you want. You can actually even read this chapter again and learn more.
Again, that is
I
also.
have a lot of questions for me. Because the more you read, see, whether you read Gita once or twice, the second time you read, you learn much more.
Oh,
It is just that there is no, you can never say I've completed the course. There is
yes.
always something to learn. There is just, the deeper you go, the more gems you can get out of the book. Okay, we will stop here. And yeah, I'll be in touch with Balaji Garu, but keep it 22nd would be the one that we would meet around the same time, 8 o'clock. So, Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om. All of you have a great week, and we'll see you in 5 weeks.
Happy journey,
safe
sir.
trip.
Thank you.
Have a
Bye.
good trip.
Safe trip. Safe
All
trip.
right. Thank you.
Good night.
Yeah.